What's up, faithful? You're listening to another episode of the 49ers Web Zone No Huddle podcast, a part of the Odyssey Network. I'm Brian Rennick. He's Al Sacco. It was rainy here in California, and the 49ers tried to rain on a victory that should have been pretty easy out there in Tampa Bay, but they did pull it out. They survived, if you will. They survived their attempts at trying to sabotage their own victory. The 49ers beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 23-20, and we are here to talk about it today. Al, how many Tums did you take yesterday during the course of that game before Jake Moody finally kicked that game winner to end it?
Man, all that kept going through my head was, why does this team seem they want to implode? They seem like they want to implode. Why does this team over and over again make it so hard on themselves? Why we've in a team that we've already seen blow a game to the Rams and blow a game to the Cardinals, and they did everything that they could and then some to try to lose this game. And in the end, what happened was you had some big time players making big time plays at the end of the game.
Yes.
Thought Brock Purdy, and I have so much to say about this, I thought he was phenomenal in the fourth quarter. George Kittle catches a short pass, runs for 30 yards or whatever it was, huge play, and then makes the phenomenal catch and toe tap on a phenomenal throw from Purdy. You had Jennings making a big play. You had McCaffrey making plays. I just think you had the stars came out and made some big plays and said, okay, all right, we're not going to let this get too far away. And even on defense, Nick Bosa has a big sack at the end of the game. The defense played well overall, I thought, even though at the end they got bullied on that last touchdown drive for sure, I thought. But look, man, there's a lot of things that worry me. The special teams were negative 16 in this game. It happens every fucking week. Every week with the special teams. And the Niners just seem content on imploding. And eventually that's going to catch up to them. So it's one of those wins that kind of feels gross, but they pulled it out. And there's so much to unpack. Sometimes in a game, you're like, all right, what are we going to talk about? There's so much to unpack here. I think I want to start with Purdy. Let's start with the positives.
Yeah.
And where I was with Brock Purdy, I try to stay off Twitter during the games. You know, obviously I'll tweet, but I try not to scroll. I try to watch the game. But I was looking through some things, you know, in between commercials and things like that. And people early in the game bashing Purdy. Oh, well, if this keeps up, you know, Kyle we're looking for a new QB. How are we going to give him this contract? I'm like, dude, it's been 2 series. Let's get into the flow of the game a little bit. And I just wonder if do people even watch other NFL quarterbacks? It's like they expect.
They don't.
I don't think they do.
No.
Look around the league. Just even the players who have good games, there's ebbs and flows in the game. People don't come out and throw, oh, yeah, he was 30 for 35 and 400 yards and 4 TDs, and he diced people up. Maybe that happens once in a while, but there's ebbs and flows in the games. Quarterbacks have up moments and down moments and up throws and down throws and up drives and down drives. So I thought Purdy played okay in the first half. I thought he had some really good moments. But then in the second half, Brian, I thought he was phenomenal. And not just statistically, we're in the fourth quarter. He was 10 of 14 for 160 yards, a TD, and 133 rating. The clutch moments. Now, the drive down for the touchdown, the throw that he makes to George Kittle, that is a highlight reel, top tier QB level play where he's scrambling around. He's extending the play with his legs and just throws a dime, a perfect throw that Kittle had make a great catch on too.
Sure.
But Purdy put it in the only place that he could.
Yep.
He put it in the only place that he could. A phenomenal throw to get the touchdown there. And then he did fumble, maybe a little careless when they were driving back down there. It was before Moody missed another field goal, right? Mm-hmm. And Tampa Bay comes down and ties the game. But what Purdy does drives the team right down without any drama. Just boop, 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 boop. Field goal range. And how many times have you
perfect
Tom
throws
Brady win Super Bowls like that? Just, hey, I'm going to get us downfield. I'm going to set us up to get 3 points and win the game. He did it flawlessly. And there are a lot of quarterbacks that don't do that week after week. He just did it with, okay, boom, we're going right down the field and we're going to get 3 points. Nobody's saying he's Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Allen. Nobody's saying he's Josh Allen. But what he is a really, really, really good quarterback. You have a good quarterback. He's only 24. He's going to have ups and downs, but he's a good player. He's going to play another bad game this year. And I'm going to tell you the same thing. He had a bad game, but he's still a good player. I was so impressed with what he did at the end of the game to really, in some ways, other guys made plays too, but Purdy was one of the people who put the team on his back to go win that game.
Well, and I also just think back to that throw to Christian McCaffrey with the free rusher in his face where he's going backwards because that rusher's coming, but he just trusts McCaffrey enough. And, Tom Brady actually highlighted that throw after the game and basically asked him, like, what is it that you saw, basically? And he's like, listen, we've run that route so many times with Christian McCaffrey since he's been here. And I just had faith that he was going to beat that linebacker, and I just had to get it out to him. And that's exactly what happened. And that's, again, some of what has been missing is, Brock Purdy, for everything that he did last year, his favorite targets last year were Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey, and he spent all offseason without both of them, and then spent the first half of the season without McCaffrey, and really without an Ayuk that was in shape and ready to play football. And so, what I appreciate is you're starting to see him find more chemistry with Ricky Pearsall, more chemistry with Juwan Jennings, who, by the way, led the team in targets. Had 11 targets from that X position. You got to wonder, like, I know that they are totally different players, but you got to wonder if the front office is looking at Juwan Jennings and his time as the X receiver this season and going, damn, like,
they might be.
Maybe we shouldn't have given Brandon Ayuk that contract. And obviously that's not fair. It is what it is. That contract's been given out, whatever. But they also might be looking, going, we should probably extend Juwan Jennings again, because the dude is just an absolute baller. And I think, to me, the play of the game is that last reception by Juwan Jennings. Instead of going out of bounds, he fights for every single extra inch, including a dive at the end of the play. Because I'll tell you what, if he doesn't dive at the end of that play, or if he just goes out of bounds, holy shit, Jake Moody's not making that kick, right? He barely made the one that they won on, and because the extra yardage that Juwan Jennings got. So, I mean, here's the other thing. I think people, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit when we get to the special teams. And I said this to you right before we started recording. People in general, but also just football fans, and we can get even more specific to 49ers fans, are such prisoners of the moment, right? And it's like everyone is upset at Brock Purdy because they know that he's up for a new contract. And the market says that he's going to get $55 to $60 million. So now all of a sudden, Brock Purdy is being judged against this idea that he is going to make $60 million. And they're like, wait a second, like, he's not a $60 million. Listen, every quarterback that comes up for a contract extension is a $60 million quarterback now,
100%.
Because that's what the market dictates. We got to let go of this idea, right? That if we're going to pay him this $60 million a year, that he better be Lamar Jackson, or Lamar Jackson is Lamar Jackson, right? But each new quarterback that comes up for a deal is going to reset the market to a certain extent. And you've got to let go of that idea, right? It's so if you're not paying Brock Purdy, so you're content with what? Going back into the draft and starting all over again? Like, give me a break. Like, no. Brock Purdy is the quarterback. He's the quarterback now. He's the quarterback of the future. He's going to get a contract that is going to pay him an obscene amount of money, but that doesn't mean that he's not going to have a bad couple drives to start the game. It doesn't mean that he's going to have an entire bad game. Look, Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions against the Texans last night off of 3 weeks where he barely threw incompletions. Like, it happens. It's the NFL. Take a breath, take a step back, like, stop being such a prisoner of the moment, and just recognize, like, this game is going to be drive to drive. Every game is drive to drive. And while the first couple drives may be poor, then you get the drive in the fourth quarter that drives them down to win the game. Like, take a breath, everybody. Just take a breath when you're watching these games.
Let the
Take
game
the
play
phone
out.
out of your hand. Take the phone out of your hand. Don't get on Twitter. Just watch the damn game and then tweet afterwards. Holy crap.
Yeah, let the game play out, because for Jared Goff, I'm sure everybody was killing him during the game. Guess what? They came back and won.
Yeah.
They came back and won. So it says a lot about, especially with your quarterback, where he can suck for 3 quarters and still, have the moxie to come back and help you win the game. It's the guy I want behind
You
center.
want that. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of guys that can't win the game at any point. Look how bad the quarterback plays in this league. It's terrible.
Look at the number one overall
Purdy
pick right
is a
now.
really, really good one. Purdy has 13 games with at least 2 TD passes and a rating of 115 plus. He's tied with Justin Herbert for the second most in NFL history in the first 3 seasons. Wilson and Patrick Mahomes have more. Purdy is the second quarterback since 1950 with a rating of 100 plus in 10 of his first 15 career road starts. Only Mahomes has more. Crazy stuff. Absolutely crazy stuff. He was great against the blitz yesterday. He was blitzed on 27 of 42 dropbacks.
Phenomenal.
This is according to Jeff Deeney from PFF.
Yep.
Purdy was 18 of 22 for 274 yards, 2 TDs, and 148.9 passer rating when blitzed. This is big time QB stuff. Really is. And I agree with you with the prisoner of the moment stuff. And you said it best. Get off your phone. Watch the game. Make your own decisions. See how the game plays out. You don't have to be the first person to say, like, oh, I got a tweet with 10 minutes left in the first quarter. I'm thinking how Purdy's playing. There's a whole game to go. Save your opinion. Let things play out. He just, again, I was so impressed. 24-year-old quarterback, second full season. Everything's imploding. And I just thought he was terrific.
Well, and not
CMC
only that,
helped a lot.
But I was going to say, you're right. He did in the passing game, but you're also talking about a guy who had an ineffective running game for the entire game, right? Christian McCaffrey, 13 attempts for 39 yards. Deebo Samuel, 3 attempts for 14 yards. Jordan Mason, 1 attempt, which, by the way, what?
Yeah, that was a little weird. That was a little weird.
What are we doing here? But, and then Brock Purdy himself rushed for 17 yards. He was the second leading rusher on the team with 17 yards. So, again, he's carving up this secondary when the secondary knows that he's throwing, right? So again, just an impressive all-around performance from Brock Purdy. And it was, I mean, I don't know what else you expected from a quarterback in that game.
And that's a good lean into McCaffrey. He had 6 catches in the game. Obviously, huge, you said on the wheel route, that huge catch. And I thought he was definitely a safety valve for Purdy. He has 6 catches coming into a team that had 15 running back receptions in the first 8 games. So right away, the impact is felt again there. He had some good runs, didn't look like himself. And why would he? He's coming off, he hasn't played the whole season. He's got to work himself back into shape. And he even said himself, he didn't feel like himself out there. But you could notice the difference with McCaffrey there. It just changes everything. Now, you mentioned Jordan Mason only with the 1 carry. I'm not shocked because it's Shanahan, and I kind of assumed he was going to do that. But for McCaffrey to play every snap except 7, thought I didn't like it personally. I don't know if anybody has to give a shit what I think, but I thought it was too much. And he may come out of this game fine. My worry is keeping him healthy the whole season into next season. Thought they should ease him in a little bit. Jordan Mason has earned the right to get 4 or 5 carries, at least in a game. He had 5 yards on his 1 carry. And in a game like this, where you're having trouble running the ball in that heat, let him go and be physical and pound the ball in between the tackles. Cause McCaffrey didn't have none of his carries were in between the tackle. Everything was outside the tackle. So run Jordan Mason into that line. I know Vita Vea is there, but it's okay. It's hot. Wear the defensive line down. Even a 2-yard run is good. It's like a body blow. So I was a little bit surprised that he played that much, but it was good to have him back. He did make an impact, and we'll see where this goes. I only expect him to get better, but that injury is going to be in the back of my mind for the rest of the season.
Yeah, it has to be. It absolutely has to be. And like we said, I said you have to protect Christian McCaffrey from himself. Apparently, you also have to protect Christian McCaffrey from Kyle Shanahan, because, like, again, it's his first game back, and like you said, he's on the field for every play except 7. Like, what are we doing? Like, come on. And it was also just a weird game plan in general. You're talking about a Bucs team that can't stop the run really at all. And the fact that they couldn't generate a run game to speak of was really surprising to me. And it genuinely feels like every time that we go into a game and we look at it and go, man, this team is, really bad in this area, or this team is really bad in this area. It feels like every time we say that this season, when we analyze the game afterwards, we go, wow, the area that this team wasn't good in, the 49ers didn't attack at all. Like, it just seemed like I just don't. And again, Kyle Shanahan has forgot more about football than I'll ever know. I understand that. But sometimes you look at it and go, that just seems weird. It just seems off. And, maybe I'm talking out of my ass. I don't know. But it does seem weird. And again, for Jordan Mason to only get one carry in a game where it is hot, like you said, give the guy that runs between the tackles, give him more carries, punish that defensive line, like impose your will. That's what this team used to do, right? This team used to impose their will on other teams. And it hasn't seemed like there's been a single game this season where this team has imposed their will on the other team from either side of the ball. And it just feels like it's not the type of football that we're used to from this team. And it just is interesting. And I think it's part of why they're 5-4. And let's be perfectly honest, barely 5-4.
In letting these games slip away, it's another game where they, a lot of yards. They had 5 players hit 50 plus receiving yards in this game. Jennings had 93. Pearsall, who with the big catch, he looked phenomenal. I mean, that's another huge plus, is that he really looks like a player.
Yeah.
And somebody who can be a starter next year.
Yep.
McCaffrey 68, Debo 62, Kittle 57. That's tied for the most in a game in franchise history. And the Niners have done that 3 other times. So again, they're getting yards, but in the red zone, what's happening again? Not touchdowns. There weren't touchdowns happening in the red zone. And that's part of the implosion, that they can't finish these drives off. So what happens is teams stick around. Teams come back. You allow teams to hang around. And another thing that gets teams back into games, Brian, is shitty special teams play.
Yes.
And as the 49ers have these games where they implode, inevitably, it's always a special teams play that gets the other team back into the game or costs them. Think to the Cardinals game, where at the end of the game, they have a big return to set the Cardinals up for the win. Game against Seattle that they won, but Seattle it should have been a cakewalk, and Seattle gets back into the game with a kick return.
Yep.
In this game, we're negative 16. Cowing, I'm glad he had a nice return, but he also muffed a punt. And there's 7 points.
Yeah.
And then we have the 3 missed field goals. And you said some really interesting things about Jake Moody. I'm gonna ask you to repeat off when we were talking off camera.
Yeah.
I'll ask you to repeat, but it was a huge negative. There was the Debo blow up on the sideline, which we'll get to in a second. But every week, over and over and over again, special teams is costing the Niners somehow, some way. Kyle, if you don't make a change, you're the head coach, you're the CEO, you're in charge of everything. I know you don't want to fire your coaches. I'm sure you don't want to fire Brian Schneider, but holy shit. Right. I mean, they came into this game 30th in DVOA in the league in special teams.
I'm sure it'll be
lower. They're lower after that shit show. Yeah. So at what point, how much it already cost you a Super Bowl, arguably, because you were -8 in the Super Bowl.
Right.
At what point do you have to say to yourself, dude, like we got to move on? I don't think someone said in the chat, Schneider's going to be gone in the offseason. I don't think there's any way he can stay after this year. But how many games are you going to lose this year? How many games are you going to lose this year because of it? Enough is enough. And I think everybody's fed up. I think the fan base is fed up. I think the players are fed up, as you saw from the blow up on the sidelines. When's enough going to be enough? But you mentioned with Moody, maybe he had a bad game. He's coming off a high ankle sprain. You made some decent points about maybe where people got to take a breath with that, though.
Yeah. Again, it's since that game, since yesterday, even today, you scroll 49ers Twitter and, there are so many people that are like, you just got to cut your losses, right? Like, he's not it, blah, blah. And it's like, again, I feel like people are prisoners of the moment, and obviously missing 3 field goals sucks. Like, that is hard to take in a game where I'm sure fans felt like we're on the precipice of losing this game as the Bucks are driving. Let's take a step back. As the Bucks are on offense trying to get a touchdown, and the 49ers are imploding on defense with penalties and just giving them free yards to the point where they get into the red zone. And thank God that defense bowed up and kept them out of the end zone and allowed them to just kick a field goal to tie the game instead of a touchdown to win the game. But obviously you're in that position because Jake Moody has missed 3 field goals. You would have 9 extra points on the board. You're not worried about it. I get it.
Yeah.
I understand. Here's the thing. Jake Moody had missed 1 field goal this season prior to his injury. He was 15 of 16 prior to the injury, right? And so it's not like he's sucked all season and then he got injured and he came back and he sucked again. He hasn't. He's been good this season until this game. But here's the thing. Games like that are going to happen for kickers, quarterbacks, whatever. Again, I mentioned it earlier. You know, Jared Goff threw 5 interceptions against the Texans. His team still came back to win. Jake Moody missed 3 field goals against the Bucs. But as Kyle Shanahan said after the game, you're only as good as your last kick. And for him to shake off 3 misses to kick a game-winning field goal, that's a positive in my book, right? Do I wish that he didn't miss those 3 field goals? Absolutely. Younghoe Koo, you said it when we were talking. He missed, I think, 4 field goals yesterday.
Yeah, 3 or 4 yesterday.
3 or 4 yesterday, right? Nobody thinks that Younghoe Koo is a shitty kicker, right? He's one of the better kickers in the NFL. So again, let's take a step back. Let's take a breath. Let's actually put some thought and analysis into some of the things that we're saying. Jake Moody is not a bad kicker. As a rookie last year, he, I believe his field goal percentage was 84%. He had some struggles. He was a rookie. I get it, right? And I also understand as a fan when you look and go, well, look, we brought in one guy who didn't miss any kicks, but then injured himself in the same game that he started. And then we brought in a second guy who also didn't miss any kicks. And I get it. I understand that. But again, you've got to give yourself some perspective, right? Again, Moody was 15 of 16 prior to the injury. Do we think that he's going to miss 3 field goals again in a game? I sure hope not. I don't think he had never done it before then, right? So again, like let's just take a breath, you guys. Let's step back from the ledge and just let things play out. But I agree with you that the special teams as a whole, kick coverage units, kick return units, punt coverage units, punt return units,
inexcusable,
just inexcusable. And you know, the other question is, if you fire Brian Schneider, who takes over, right? Well, likely it's just going to be whoever the assistant special teams coordinator is, but he's already on the staff. He's already a part of the squad that sucks right now. So again, I don't know that there are easy answers. I do agree that Schneider is probably gone after this season, but ultimately, and you kind of hinted at it, special teams on this team is never going to get better until Kyle Shanahan himself starts to give a shit about special teams. And he has not for the entirety of his tenure here. And he's got to, if it's going to get better.
I think where Moody is going to get a lot of this criticism is because he's a 3rd round pick. If he was somebody off the street or a free agent they sign, you know, who's just one of those kickers who travels around the league, it seems like people are a little bit, God, kickers, but not so much like this guy, right?
Yeah.
But because he's a 3rd round pick, because a lot of people were like, why are we taking a kicker in the 3rd round again? He's going to get the scrutiny.
Sure.
And he did miss an extra point in the Super Bowls being a 3rd round pick. So he's going to get the scrutiny. Fair or not fair, it's frustrating as hell. Fans are frustrated. The team is frustrated. The Deebo Samuel thing, you know, again, everybody's going to have their opinions. If you watch the NFL and you're around the NFL, what do you think? They're all high fives and hugs on the sidelines? I mean, you're kidding me? This is a violent, emotional game. And I thought back to a few things. One, what Jerry Rice said on the radio recently after the Niners lost to the Chiefs, where he was like, we would have been fighting on this. We'd have been fighting each other on the sidelines there.
Yeah.
Do people forget Travis Kelce screaming in Andy Reid's face in the Super Bowl? Like screaming in his coach's face?
Right.
I remember they show it a lot, but Peyton Manning went over to his offensive line and he was like screaming at his offensive line. I think it was Tarek Glenn who got up and like pushed him away and was like, get the hell out of here. It happens all the time. Yeah. So Deebo says something to whatever he said to Moody, whether it was positive, negative, trying to pump him up, whatever. Tabor Pepper took exception. Fine. He's sticking up for his kicker. It's all good.
What you do. Yeah.
People were like, Debo had his hands around his neck. Listen, I am not somebody who like blindly defends players at all. I don't give a shit. I don't know. Some of them I know a little bit, but I don't know them. I know none of them are my friends. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like if somebody's out there talking shit about Brian Rennick, where I'd be like, whoa, hold on, man. I know Brian. He's kind of a scumbag, but not that much. But
dang it.
But I'm going to like go out of my way to stick up for them. I'm not that, but it didn't look like Debo. Debo just kind of pushed his face mask away.
I think that was his intention. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all it looked like to me. It's not like he tried to strangle the guy. Give me a break. No. He was just like, get the hell out of here. So is Debo a captain? Should Debo come from a positive place? Absolutely. I think that should be, but in the heat of the moment, we've seen this happen a million times on NFL sidelines. It happens. I didn't think it was a huge deal. Those guys will talk it out. And you know what? It's not the last sideline altercation that's going to happen this year. We don't see a lot of them on television. You know how many times guys are probably going at each other? The cameras don't pick it all up. It's part of the NFL. It happens. Next time maybe Debo will think twice, but I don't think it's a big deal at all. People got on their soapboxes about it on both sides. Give me a break.
Moody made his next kick.
He did. Yeah, I don't know if it had anything to do with it,
Moody,
but even I saw people attacking Tabor Pepper too. Like, give me a break, man. Good for him too for sticking up for his kicker.
Right.
And who cares? Like, let these guys have some competitive fire. And first of all, nobody knows what was said. Nobody was there. So, give me a break on that one. But I don't think it was a big deal. Debo next time will probably think twice and take a deep breath and do better. But these things happen on NFL sidelines.
Well, and I mean, according to Tabor Pepper, all that Debo said was lock in, which that's where people are like, well, then why did Tabor Pepper take exception to that? But again, I think it's as Tabor Pepper said, it is very difficult. It's a very difficult life in the NFL as a specialist, right? Because again, like you're right. You're talking about a sport where guys are literally putting their lives on the line every time they step across that sideline onto the field. And for a specialist, you're not in that with them, right? Like you're kind of off, right? It's like there's a spot on the roster where it's like specialists and there's 3 of them and it's your long snapper, your punter, and your kicker, right? And it's almost like they don't necessarily feel like they're a part of the team. And I know that they are, and I know that they all love each other. And again, brothers, right? Brothers fight all the time, right? Regardless of if you love each other or not. But here is the thing that I think threw a lot of people off is that I would say over the course of the last 4 to 5 seasons, we have not really seen anything like that from this 49er squad. And that's why
that we've seen,
right? That's what I'm saying, that we've seen. And I think that's why it caught people off guard, because we have always talked about one of the strengths of this team is just the cohesion in that locker room, the brotherhood, everybody has their back, each other's back. Like it has always felt like it like an us against the world mentality. And we haven't seen a lot of infighting, whether it be on the sidelines or even sniping at each other in the media, sniping at each other on social media, whatever the case may be. We haven't seen a lot of that. And so I think that's part of it. I think that's part of why people reacted the way that they did. But like you said, and even Jerry Rice said, like, it happens. It happens on football sidelines because, again, like you said, it is a game of such heightened emotions and a game of such intensity that, you're busting your ass for 60 minutes and getting the shit kicked out of you. And all this guy has to do is kick a football and he's missed 3 times, right? Like, just put yourself in Debo's place and you're going to say, you know what? I'd probably be frustrated too. Now, does that justify what happened? No. But does it mean that, again, Debo is a scumbag or Tabor Pepper is no, it doesn't. It's just, it's brothers fighting. And when brothers fight, they fight, but then brothers make up. And I promise you that whether it's Debo and Tabor doing that themselves, I think Kyle Shanahan even said, I didn't really see it happen, but if there's anything lingering, we'll take care of it on the plane. Meaning like, we're not letting this go any further past the plane ride back, right? Like we hit the ground running when we get back in Santa Clara and it's not going to be an issue anymore. So again, I think it's quite a bit of a nothing burger, if you will, because ultimately they won the game. And Moody was the one that kicked the game-winning field goal. And again, I also appreciated Kyle Shanahan. There was video of the post-game speech that he gave, and he highlighted Moody, and he said, hey, like, you can't imagine the amount of pressure that was on that dude. And for him to make that kick after having the day that he did, like, basically kudos to him. And I appreciated, as a leader, Kyle Shanahan, like, not allowing, again, anything to fester inside the locker room, to the point where he is pointing or pointing to Moody and going, hey, good job, young guy. Like, you won the game for us. And ultimately that's all that matters.
Well, Callie again in the chat brought up another good point, and I can't believe I forgot this example when I was giving him earlier. Steve Young literally tried to fight George Seifert in 1994. When Steve Young, this is factual, Steve Young says this, and I forget, I don't know if it was an NFL Films thing or wherever he said it, but he got pulled in the Eagles game. They were getting destroyed in 1994. And Steve Young said, I wanted to fight George Seifert. I was looking for a fight. Those are basically his exact words, what he said. And they show the highlights of him literally screaming at George Seifert. Could you imagine if Deebo Samuel went in the locker room or went on his press conference after the game and said, yeah, I want to fight Kyle Shanahan. I wanted to fight him. People would go crazy.
Yeah.
Go crazy. But you don't even bat an eyelash when it happens with Steve Young. Arguments probably happen weekly on the sidelines, especially when teams are losing. Like you said, it's a physical game. Deebo's getting all beat up. His kicker's missing kicks. Just because we don't see it on camera doesn't mean it happens. And these guys, it's not. I feel like a lot of fans, they look at their team like almost like a 10-year-old kid would look at it. We're like, oh, everything's hunky dory, and I love all these guys and everything. It's not like that. Just because you see a picture of George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk and whoever else out at a basketball game doesn't mean the whole team is like high fives and hugs every time they see each other. They don't all hang out. They probably have guys on the team who don't like each other, frankly. I think most teams probably do. You don't like everybody you work with. They're professionals, and they're going to go to battle for each other when they're on the field and that type of thing. How many times do you hear about fights in training camp amongst teammates? I mean, constantly.
Fred Warner and Brandon Ayuk.
Sure, absolutely.
Last offseason.
I get why it was on camera, and it wasn't a great look for Deebo just from what was caught on camera, but I'm kind of like, get over it, man. It's kind of what I feel like with the whole thing, and they will, and it'll blow over. It's not anything that'll linger, but it's also is something that's the microscope under it, because the Niners aren't playing well, because there is some drama there with that sort of thing. And there has been drama with the special teams. So when you're not playing well and something like that happens, it's going to get more attention. And again, like we said, everybody on social media and everywhere else wants to throw their opinion into every single thing. So that's what you have. But I think it's going to go away. Is the way the 49ers playing, is that going to go away? I don't know, man. We're going to find out in the next 3 weeks. We're going to find out what this team is, because you're going to get Seattle after the bye. And I know they kind of own Seattle, and I'm not particularly worried about the game, but you're getting them after a bye. You're getting them probably with a healthy DK Metcalf now. I would think he'll be back. They need to win. Their season's on the line. And then you go to Green Bay, and you go to Green Bay, and you go to Buffalo.
To Buffalo. Yep.
This is the stretch, man.
It is.
We're going to find out a lot.
It is. And one of the things that we didn't talk about was, Renardo Green left the game. Don't know if that injury is going to linger. The secondary didn't look, especially on that final drive, didn't look all that great with Rocky Sin out there. Charvarius Ward should be back, but we don't know. And again, I don't want Charvarius Ward back until he is mentally and emotionally ready to be back. And if that means the rest of the season, so be it. I would never begrudge a player who lost a child. Football
whatever
means
he needs,
absolutely nothing
needs for his family.
Absolutely nothing. So again, I'm not even concerned about it. If he's back, great. If he's not, again, I'm not. I would never say a negative word about that. But that is a concern, especially if DK Metcalf is back and healthy for the Seahawks. This will be an interesting game to see, again, with Christian McCaffrey on the ground. Can they get the ground game going? Because they really just ran all over Seattle the last time they played on Thursday night. So that'll be something that I look at. The defense against the Bucs, again, you're talking about a Bucs team that is reeling from injuries, especially at the skill position.
Yep.
Outside of Cade Otton, not really anybody to throw to. And Baker Mayfield had a game where it looked like he didn't have anybody to throw to. He was 18 of 29 for 116 yards, a touchdown, but no interceptions. Again, played within himself, but just didn't have really
some
anything.
gutsy plays, a few amazing plays to keep drives,
especially
going.
that last drive, that throw that he made
on the 4th and 7 with the stiff
with
arm
Nick
to Bosa.
Yeah, just holding Nick Bosa off. Like, I'm sure Nick Bosa is like, God damn it.
Who's not healthy. He looked
Yeah.
like he was in a lot of pain in that game.
Yeah, and that hit pointer obviously wasn't, he wasn't playing up to his ability. He even had two more missed tackles. But
So
again,
he's up to 9 for the year. He has 9 missed tackles.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But again, gutted it out. Good for him.
Had a huge sack.
Not a whole lot behind him, right? If he's out, it's looking gross. So, but defensively, again, did everything that they could to to give this game to the Bucks, with some really uncharacteristic penalties on some players.
They were undisciplined.
Undisciplined, yeah. Although one thing that I did appreciate, Evan Anderson penalized illegal hands to the face, got it. But like 2 plays later, made that huge stuff in the backfield where I was like, that is what you are hoping for from Evan Anderson. And so, gave up 73 yards to Bucky Irving on 13 attempts and 31 yards to Rashad White on 10 attempts. So gave up over 100 yards on the ground to a team that isn't necessarily the best at running the football. They've been better. But I mean, ultimately, like we said, they won the game. These can be character building games, and that's what you hope comes out of this, right? You hope that what comes out of a game where you were undisciplined, where you had miscues in all 3 phases, right? But you still pull out a victory. Those can be important, and those can be character building, and that's what you hope comes from this game.
Yeah, the defense didn't play poorly, but that last drive, they were undisciplined. They got bullied on that touchdown drive. Was it touchdown drive or the field? I forget which drive, but towards the end of the game, they were getting bullied on the defensive line.
Yeah.
The secondary continues to play really, really well. Mustafa had a good game. Green, before he went out, I believe he was the highest rated defensive player on PFF for the Niners. Brown had a strong game. Lenore had some great plays. The secondary is playing really well. I thought Campbell played better, really, for the second game in a row. I thought he's had a rough season, but he did better. Warner had a couple of penalties there, again, some uncharacteristic stuff from him. Bosa missed a tackle, but he has the big sack. Evan Anderson, a guy that I really like. I think he's going to be good as he continues to develop. He's been forced to play maybe more than they've wanted him to this year.
Yeah.
But again, I've been saying it the whole year. I don't think the defensive line on a whole is good enough. And against the better team, against the whole Bucks team that has other stars, it might have had a different outcome. So while the Niners defense didn't play poorly by any stretch of the imagination, we're all sort of waiting for them to put together a complete game, real complete effort, sort of a dominating effort. I don't know that that's there anymore. This is probably what you're going to get from them, is where they have spots where they, in streaks where they look really good, and then others where they get bullied and pushed around a little bit. And we'll see as they get against some of these really good teams, as they play Green Bay, as they play Buffalo, as they play Detroit, as they play these more high octane offenses. We're really going to see what they're made of. Can they show up and make some big plays and get turnovers and shut teams down? Sure, they have talent to do that. But until I see differently on the defensive line, I'm going to worry that against those teams, when it happens, you're going to start to see some things get exposed.
Yeah, for sure. This is not, and we knew it going into the season. We talked about it going into the season. This is a season where the superstars are on the other side of the ball now, not the defensive side. And it's going to be a team that has to be carried by their offense. Now, that offense has been underperforming, which is why they're 5-4. Because if the offense was performing like it was last season, then I would imagine that this team maybe has 1 or 2 losses, not 4. And so what you hope is, with McCaffrey back, with seems like the emergence of Ricky Pearsall, the continued ascension of Juwan Jennings, with George Kittle playing unequivocally the best tight end in the NFL this season.
Being George Kittle.
Not even, there's no debate. And Deebo Samuel, hopefully again, starting to figure out how to, I don't know, get him going, right? Like he just has been largely a non-factor this entire season. And I don't know what it's going to take to get him going, but however they're using him right now, again, not really it for
It's not
Deebo
sweeps.
Samuel. Yeah,
I
it's
can't think of the last
not
one
anymore.
that worked.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to get him out of the backfield. It's not working anymore. So, but again, that to say, and not only that, but Dominic Pooney, man. Dominic Pooney has been incredible. Still, no sacks allowed. The highest rated PFF grade on offense yesterday for the 49ers was Dominic Pooney. But you've got an offensive line that is playing a lot better than it did last year, right? Especially in the passing game and pass blocking. So again, you got to hope with McCaffrey back, they find their footing. These issues in the red zone start to work themselves out as McCaffrey continues to work himself back in. And this is when they go on a run, and it's not going to look like I want to caution fans. It's not going to look like it did in the past, right? It's not going to look like all of a sudden the offense clicks and you're just absolutely murking teams and just like 38-17 or whatever. We're talking games that are probably going to look like 31-24, 31-27, 33-20, right? Like they are going to be a lot closer because this defense just doesn't have what it used to. Not to say that there's not still talent on that side of the ball. There is. It's just not overwhelming as it used to be. And so, again, prepare yourselves for shootouts, things like that. But again, this offense has the talent and is good enough to carry this team. They just got to find a way to put it all together.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Subscribe where you get your podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube station. For Brian, I'm Al.
Later.